What's happening? Welcome into the Matt Bernier Show. My name is Matt Bernier. Follow me on Twitter at Bernier_Matt. This is the recap edition. We're going to go back and take a look at a couple of big Kentucky Derby preps as well as a big Grade 1 race internationally. We'll look at the Florida Derby, the Grade 1 Dubai World Cup, as well as the Uae Derby. If you're new to this program, thanks for diving in. For those of you that have been long-time listeners, thank you especially. You can listen to this podcast in a number of different ways: YouTube, SoundCloud, iTunes, video.drf.com, as well as Spotify. However you take this thing in, please subscribe, rate, and review. If you're over on YouTube, just make sure the bell icon's lit up so you get everything that DRFTV has to offer. We do a recap edition as well as a preview edition. Recap comes out on Mondays. Preview or Preview. That always gets me all messed up. Recap, preview, review, all sorts of different things. Point is, recap show's on Mondays. Preview show is on Thursdays. This is the recap show, though, and we'll kick things off with the big one, the crown jewel down in South Florida for their entire meeting, the championship meeting at Gulfstream. It was the 14th race on Saturday, the Grade 1 Florida Derby. Let's take a look at that field. The 3-year-olds going 9 furlongs. Post-time favorite was Hidden Scroll. He was bet down to odds of 9-5. Based on that most recent run in the Fountain of Youth where he set a wicked pace, paid the price late, was run down by Code of Honor and Bourbon War. Both of those horses were back in this spot as well. Many people looked at those three and said one of those three is going to be the one that gets the job done. Ultimately, it was a fresh face that prevailed. Here's the stretch run of the 2019 Florida Derby.
Maximum Security cuts the corner and opens up. Maximum Security, less than a quarter of a mile to go, and he's 6 on top. Second is Bodie Express. He's running a huge race down at the inside in Code of Honor. Hidden Scroll at a 1-pace. Bourbon War on the outside. But Maximum Security proves he's the real deal with a gate-to-wire win in the Florida Derby. Bodie Express was second. Code of Honor
Maximum Security in gate-to-wire fashion. He gets the job done at odds of 9-2. Bodie Express runs second at odds of 71-1. Code of Honor third at odds of 7-2. And your fourth place finisher is Bourbon War at odds of 5-2. The post-time favorite, Hidden Scroll, he finishes 6th at 9-5. We'll talk about him and the other horses more momentarily, but let's start off with the winner in here. Maximum Security. He is unbeaten thus far from 4 lifetime starts. Really hasn't done anything wrong throughout his career. He's got a fair amount as far as earnings are concerned, just under $650,000. You take a look at a couple different things. He's owned and bred by Gary and Mary West Stables Incorporated down in Kentucky. He's trained by Jason Service, ridden to victory by Luis Saez, and you see the pedigree at the bottom of the horse card. He's by New Year's Day out of an Anasheed mare named Lil Indy. A couple things with Maximum Security that are going to be interesting to sort of handicap going forward as we go farther along this Kentucky Derby trail. Because right now, he is in. The top 2 finishers, they lock themselves in as far as points are concerned. Maximum Security and Bodie Express, if they want to go and if they are in good form, they're in to the starting gate for the Kentucky Derby. They're in the top 20. Maximum Security is a horse that debuted for a maiden claiming tag of $16,000. It's been well documented. I believe Mike Watchmaker wrote about it in his weekend column on Sunday. You can find that over on DRF.com. That Maximum Security wasn't even the favorite in a bottom-level maiden claiming race, just 4 starts back. And now, 4 starts later, he's a Grade 1 winner in arguably one of the most productive Derby preps leading into the Kentucky Derby historically. The Florida Derby has got a pretty good track record. The 101 Buyer speed figure that he earned in here, very, very solid. This is on the heels of a 102 that he had earned going 7/8 of a mile most recently. You look at the Timeform US ratings, the raw number is a 120, but pace adjusted, it's turned down to a 116. The reason that I keep saying that this is going to be an interesting sort of case study going forward, you look at Gulfstream Park on Saturday, Timeform US had the main track intensely speed favoring, and every single fraction of this race in the Florida Derby was color-coded blue, meaning it was helping horses that were on or near the early lead. No surprise, the first 2 horses, they were 1-2 the entire way in this race. So Maximum Security, it's difficult, based on what you've seen on the track. He looks like a really nice horse. He looks like he can run. It's difficult to project forward. How is he going to handle better horses, a more adverse pace situation? Because it seems almost assured that you're not going to get a situation or a circumstance like you got on Saturday, the first Saturday in May. It just seems like that is highly improbable, put it that way. But then also, you do have to look at this horse and say, well, how and I understand, I believe Jason Service was the one that said that since he was a homebred, they could gamble a little bit more, and that's why they dipped him in so early, or so low rather. I just look at it and go, either it was a gross underestimate of how good this horse was, or I mean, how, if you thought that this was even remotely possible, you wouldn't have even dangled him in for 50, a maiden 50 tag, let alone maiden 16. I find it difficult to believe that connections of this level with a trainer, again, you make your decision and thoughts. I'm not going to try to influence your opinion one way or the other on the connections. But from a training standpoint, for someone that's clipping off at 46% for the entirety of that championship meeting, to debut a horse at maiden 16 and have him be a grade 1 winner 4 starts later, that just seems like a gross error in assessment of how good this horse is. How does that even happen? I mean, you got away with it. Good on you. But I just look at that and go, how did you, let's say it for what it is, how did you screw that up as badly as you did? There's no way that if a horse is this good that he should have been debuting for a $16,000 maiden claiming tag. That just seems asinine to me. As far as the race itself is concerned, it was a big effort, but he had so many things go in his favor, and the same can go for Bodie Express. The pace situation was advantageous for them, and the main track was advantageous for them. The pace situation then also dulled the late kicks of Code of Honor and Bourbon War, who came and rallied for 3rd and 4th. So this is going to be a very, very difficult race, I think, going forward to make a call on what you think just about the overall quality of it. I look at Maximum Security and I say, look, maybe he is just a freak. Maybe he is, the next big thing, because every one of his races, he's looked awesome. He won by 3.5 lengths in this spot. He's won by open lengths in all 4 of his starts. So it is entirely possible that he is just that good. But at the same time, I do look at it, if you liked Code of Honor before and you liked Bourbon War before, I think you have to continue to like them here. Now, the thing that concerns me about Code of Honor, I said it in the preview show last week, and I've said it for a long time, I'm fearful that as the distances get longer, he won't necessarily excel. Perhaps it was circumstances, but John Velasquez hit him left-handed with about a 16th of a mile to go. He ducked out. He swapped leads. He corrected himself back to his right lead. But it's one of those things that if I had already had those feelings prior to this race, and I recognize he didn't have a great circumstance as far as the pace is concerned, or the main track, the way it was playing, I don't know that I love the prospect of that going forward with an extra 1/8 of a mile to deal with here in about 5 weeks. Having said that, with Bourbon War on the flip side, I thought he put in a very visually impressive move on the far turn. He was wide, he was set down, and he finished willingly. I like the fact that of the final 1/8 of a mile, when you take a look at the top 4 horses, Maximum Security came home in 12:52, Bodie Express 12:61, Code of Honor 12:56, Bourbon War came home in 12:35. So he came home significantly faster, about a length faster than any of the top 3. And to me, that he continues to project forward that, you know what? And I said it going into this race on Thursday on the preview show. I said, he may still be the one you want coming out of this race long term. Going into it, I just didn't think that the pace situation would end up being advantageous. Now, I bring up the pace situation because we have to get to Hidden Scroll. Breaking from the inside, going 9 furlongs at Gulfstream, you're basically running into the first turn. He broke alertly, and he still wasn't on the lead. Maybe this was the instruction now to sit and rate. Keep in mind, me going back, and I was one of the folks saying I didn't understand the ride on him in the Fountain of Youth, where you could have sat off of 130 to 1 shot and just taken over whenever you wanted. Now, perhaps the horse doesn't have that ability. He backed up pretty badly here. This was a disappointing effort no matter how you chop it up. But at the same time, I'm not, you can, I think you need to know the circumstance. And again, I'm not pointing fingers at trainers or riders or whatever, but it is what it is. This is what happened. I look at his circumstance like this, and if the fractions were this slow and you broke on top, why wouldn't you go on with it? Why would you be so hell-bent on taking back and getting cover? I don't need, I said, okay, what are we going to learn if Hidden Scroll goes out there on Saturday? He goes right to the front. He goes gate to wire. He opens up and wins by 5. You're not going to learn anything really about his ability to rate or his ability to sit for going into the Kentucky Derby. But the point is, if you wanted to get to that point, take advantage of the circumstance presented to you. Take advantage of the trip that Maximum Security got, where there was no speed. He went right to the front, and he opened up and he won impressively. I feel like that should have been Hidden Scroll, but they were very, very intent on pulling him back and rating him. In hindsight, was it a tactical error? Yeah, I think it was. Does it mean that he can't sit? Perhaps. It's entirely possible. Perhaps he's just a wet track freak. Perhaps he's not as good as many people thought he was, myself included. I don't know, but I don't know that. I don't know that this was the time to find out if he could rate. That's my only thought, is that you probably should have done it last time when you had a target that was probably going to come back to you no matter what, to sit off of that one and go on with it. This time around, you're drawn to the inside, you're speed nearest the rail. Now isn't the time to be doing that, in my opinion. Now is the time to go, get the job done, and you know what? However the chips fall in the Kentucky Derby, the chips fall. But I just feel like I would have loved to have seen a reverse of the trips for Hidden Scroll in each of his last 2 races. It sounds like they're going to campaign him at shorter distances. Maybe that's going to be the answer. Who knows? But I still maintain that I think this horse has ability. Maybe he's not nearly a top-level 3-year-old, but I still think there's something there. As far as the rest of the field is concerned, not a lot to add. The pace compromised, a number of the horses trying to come from off of it. I thought a decent effort from Garter and Ty, and I know it looks terrible that he finished 10th and he was, forwardly placed with the whole pace situation, but he actually put in a bit of a mid-move rounding the far turn well wide. I've always maintained he is going to be a shorter horse, a one-turn mile or 7/8 of a mile. So to me, I kind of appreciated the effort here. He put in a little bit of a bid and he flattened out. He's not a 2-turn horse in my opinion. I think you get him back to 1 turn, he could be effective. I don't know that he'll be a graded stakes type, but I wouldn't fault the connections if they chose to go to a race like the Pat Day Mile, like the Woody Stevens, anything like that, or take a chance just to find out. This is going to be a fascinating race going forward to make a decision one way or the other. Are you a believer in Maximum Security? Do you think he is the real deal? Do you think he can go on? He has shown that he can sit, albeit against much, much weaker horses. What's going to happen when he has to sit off of talented horses? But to date, look, he's done nothing wrong through 4 lifetime starts. Bodie Express, say what you will. Yes, he is a maiden, but he has earned the points to get into the Kentucky Derby. And if we all sit here and herald the point system as sort of the great equalizer and you're going to get the best of the best, I can't sit here and argue that, he doesn't deserve to be there. He's run 2 relatively fast races in the past 2 times. He earned a 96 here, and 2 starts back, he earned a 91. He continues to trend the right direction. I thought he'd be interesting here underneath. That's one where I will pat myself on the back. If you listened, you should have scored something decent as far as an exotic is concerned, with him running second at 71-1. And the 3rd and 4th place finishers, I wouldn't give up on them yet, Code of Honor or Bourbon War. I prefer Code of Honor going shorter. I will maintain that until otherwise. And Bourbon War, Sneaky, he's the one that I think coming out of this race I still maintain he might be the one. If I'm picking one horse out of this race for the Kentucky Derby, perhaps it is Bourbon War because of the running style, because he's going to get a better situation theoretically, and as well because I think there is a little bit more quality in that the distance, I don't think that's going to be an issue for him. We have a lot going on here in a short amount of time. I was just hopeful for a formful result. I suppose you got a formful result, but it's going to be interesting to see from you as a handicapper, how do you go about interpreting this race, given the pace situation, given the track, and given the way horses were ridden, so many different things. It gets to be a more and more intriguing 3-year-old trail into the Derby. We'll find out. Hopefully this coming Saturday, things get a little bit clearer with those big races at Santa Anita, Keeneland, and Aqueduct. What we do know, though, Maximum Security, he's gone from a maiden $16,000 runner to a Grade 1 winner in 4 starts. He is the winner of the Grade 1 Florida Derby here in 2019, a 101 buyer, and a 116 pace-adjusted Timeform US rating. Let's quickly dive into the Dubai World Cup, and I say quickly simply because we don't have as many things available to us. There are no sort of charts in the racing form, so graphically I can't show you that. We will show you the PPs, though, of the winner of the Dubai World Cup, and we can take a brief look at the field. Again, bit of an international flavor, but the Americans are always well represented. Whether it was a horse like Seeking the Soul, whether it was Gunnevera, whether it was Yoshida, who's a little bit of an international flair himself, just based on his pedigree. You had Pavel, who went over there, and Pavel, look, outside of Southern California, usually he does his best work, so perhaps this would be an uptick. But you did have the reigning and defending champion of the Dubai World Cup in Thunder Snow. He most recently was seen in a prep race. That was the Al Maktoum Challenge. I believe it was round 3. Definitely needed the race based on the way that he ran that day, flattened out at the end. You had many of the sort of usual standbys out there in Dubai as far as the early rounds of the Al Maktoum Challenge are concerned, whether it was North America, Capizano, you name it. All of them were there, and ultimately we got a great stretch run from the reigning champ and a horse that we are familiar with here in the United States whose form recently looked god-awful. Here's the stretch run of this year's Dubai World Cup.
Followed by Capizano, but Gronkowski went to the lead. Thunder Snow out in the middle. North America down on the fence. Pavel from a long way back. Gronkowski the front runner, 250 metres to go. Thunder Snow on the outside, levelling up. Down the outside, Gunnevera and Pavel. Thunder Snow going after Gronkowski. Thunder Snow reaches the front. Gronkowski fights hard. Thunder Snow, Gronkowski. Thunder Snow on the outside. Nose in front us. Double Thunder. Thunder with Thunder Snow getting it.
Thunder Snow gets the job done by this much over Gronkowski. And I suppose we should start with Thunder Snow. Let's give him the credit that he is due. We'll take a look at his horse card. He's 8 of 23 lifetime. He's over $16 million in career earnings. He's owned by Godolphin LLC, trained by Saeed Ben Sarur. You take a look at the breeding. He is bred by Darley in Ireland. Ridden to victory by Christophe Soumillon, and the pedigree at the bottom of the horse card. Again, a little bit of an international flair. He is by Helmet, who is an Australian sire, out of a Dubai destination mare named Eastern Joy, who is from Great Britain. I haven't seen any of the numbers just yet, but the reason I tweeted, I had someone send me a tweet after the race saying, you know, maybe you haven't given Gronkowski his due. And I quoted it in coming back and saying that that's going to be, to me, the most difficult thing to analyze about this year's Dubai World Cup. I think Thunder Snow, for a long time, I've thought this. I think he's a good horse. I don't think he gets the credit he deserves here in the United States. And I don't think it has anything to do with that bucking bronco performance in the Kentucky Derby a few years ago. I just don't think he gets the due sort of... I don't think he gets his due. I don't think he gets the credit he deserves. He's a really nice horse. Is he ever going to go down as one of the all-time greats? No, but he's a dual World Cup winner. He won the Uae Derby. He's come over to the United States and run well in some of our bigger races. I just think he's a really nice horse. He's a Grade 1 winner or Group 1 winner on dirt and turf. You know, again, that's nothing to sneeze at. This is a really talented horse. Now, why is this race difficult to analyze going forward? Gronkowski. You know, where did that kind of race come from? I had spoke to some folks up here in New England. They were gone down to Mohegan Sun for the weekend, and I said the only reason that I not the only reason, I can't really recommend Gronkowski based on his recent form, and the only time he had been remotely close to the pace was in the Discovery last year as a 3-year-old, and that day they were just absolutely walking out there. So the fact that he was as close as he was leads me to believe that it was a very soft pace, and you could see that by some of those incremental splits. You could also see that by Capizano, who was basically in the pocket in behind North America, throwing his head about, hating life. His race was lost when he didn't make it to the front. But when Gronkowski is up as close as he is, then you kind of feel like he's going to stay the distance. That's not a question for anyone. Boy, he put in a big bid. This was a big effort from him. But again, now it's difficult to go forward and say, all right, what did we actually see here? Because is that what Gronkowski is? I mean, one of his better races. We saw in the Belmont Stakes last year. I mean, he can fire a shot every once in a while. But he's not the most consistent, or he hasn't been thus far in his career. So I don't know what you want to do with that. I do love the fact that Thunder Snow went and got him. And sure, he was all out, and it may not have been... You know, usually I think when we think of these big stars, they have these flashy, brilliant performances. And Thunder Snow doesn't really fit that bill. Last year he was criticized because he took advantage of a very speed-friendly track at Meydan that night. Fair, totally fair. But I like that he's got the tenacity to go and get a horse in front of him. I also love that Saeed Ben Sarur, who was interviewed after the race was over, he said from here on they will go to the United States. He won't go up to Europe. When that will be, who knows, but he had mentioned New York, and he had specifically mentioned Saratoga. You would imagine, and this is me just spitballing here. There's nothing that I've read, nothing that I've heard. I would imagine you'd be looking at a campaign along the lines of the Whitney, maybe back to the Jockey Club Gold Cup, where I thought he ran very well last year. And then the Breeders' Cup Classic out at Santa Anita to wrap things up. I think he's a really nice horse, and I hope he continues to run well. I hope he comes over here and acquits himself nicely. As far as the rest of the field is concerned, Gunnevera, another honest effort. The horse just tries. He's a cool horse. He's hard not to root for. The difficult thing from a gambling standpoint, we talk about these one-run closers. You're at the mercy of pace and trip. He needs a pace meltdown for him to have any real chance of getting the job done on the win end. He's still going to come with his bid, but he's going to need some serious heat in front of him. He didn't seem to get that. That's why he was as far back as he was, but he came, put in a nice bid. A fair effort from Pavel, a little bit late with the lead change, but I thought that was good all around. Yoshida was definitely, I think, the disappointment as far as the United States contingent is concerned. I know Seeking the Soul didn't really do tremendous, but Yoshida, to me, he was sluggish out of the gate, and he never really seemed that comfortable. And I know Bill Mott has said in the past that he believes he might be a better dirt horse. I'm not ready to give up on him as a turf horse. I've always thought that he was better at those sort of mile and an eighth distances on grass. And sure, he is a grade 1 winner on dirt, and he's run well on dirt in the past. But I would go back to the grass with him, but he's not my horse. And Bill Mott knows a hell of a lot more, again, about horses than I ever will. So I would just like to see him back on grass. We'll see what they end up doing with him going forward. As far as the rest of the field is concerned, a lot of the international horses, right now at face value, there's really no major need for me to go over them because I don't believe any of them are coming here to the States to run in anytime soon. So we'll button things up with that. It's another tremendous performance and another... Again, for a horse that has earned over $16 million, I still feel like Thunder Snow doesn't get the credit that he deserves. I think he's a talented horse. Have thought he's a talented horse from day one. Thunder Snow, a two-time defending champion of the Dubai World Cup. He gets it done again here in 2019. Now, a quick look at the Uae Derby. We can look at the field. Again, we don't have the chart or anything here, but we can show you the PPs for the winner as well as the replay. Look, it's one of those things where this is a difficult race generally to analyze going forward because unless you have a smashing performance, the track record for the Uae Derby horses, whether it's synthetic or dirt, is just not very good in the Kentucky Derby. And I think this result, to me anyway, sort of alludes to that, especially this year of all years. Now, look, this could be the complete opposite of what I'm saying, where of all years, maybe this is the year because it just seems like these guys haven't sorted themselves out, these 3-year-olds. But, well, first things first. Let's take a look at the stretch run of this year's Uae Derby, and then we'll dive into the logistics.
And out wider on the track is Grey Magician, but they turn in, and Mangoozy still comes on strong. Mangoozy up on the outside, goes the front, over Swift Rose Stubbins. Now down the outside, Grey Magician and Placou Parfait over on the inside. Mangoozy joined by Grey Magician. Placou Parfait is finishing hard along the inside. Placou Parfait went to the front. Grey Magician went with it. Placou Parfait in front, and Placou Parfait takes it out. Placou Parfait takes out the Derby. Wins it over Grey Magician and Mangoozy a gap off.
Placou Parfait gets it done. His second lifetime victory. It was a hard-fought one. You had 3 horses across the wire. Let's take a look at the winner, Placou Parfait. He's 2 of 7 lifetime, 3 other times in the money. He's over $1.5 million in career earnings. Amazing what a big race like this with that kind of purse will do for your career earnings. Owned by Imperial Racing LLC, trained by Brendan Walsh. Bred by Callaway Stables LLC in Kentucky, ridden to victory by Jose Ortiz, and you can see the pedigree. He's by point of entry out of an awesome, again, mare named Belvedere. So, all right, let's just, first things first. Placou Parfait, coming into this race, was not one of the more thought of, highly thought of anyway, 3-year-olds that we had. Nor was Grey Magician, who I think ran the best race in this race here, and we'll talk about that more momentarily. It's one of those things. It was a beautiful trip and a beautiful ride from Jose Ortiz, saving ground for the most part, eventually getting him out into the clear, splitting horses and going on with it. I guess I just look at it and say, if you reverse the trips of he and Grey Magician, I think Grey Magician wins by about 5. The problem with that is Grey Magician has been handled by some of our horses here in Southern California already. So I don't know that all of a sudden I'm looking at this race and saying there's a big chance that these are major Kentucky Derby contenders. I suppose a feather in their cap is that they have gone longer than anyone else will prior to the Kentucky Derby from a distance standpoint. 1 3/16 is the Uae Derby. Obviously, the Kentucky Derby is 1.25 miles, and these final preps are all at 1.125 miles. So that is something that if you're trying to build a case, they've at least gone longer, and you know they can stay perhaps better than some of these other horses at a distance more comparable to the Derby itself. But for me to look at it and see, I mean, again, maybe this is that kind of year where none of the boys have sorted themselves out. They just kind of take turns. Maybe it is setting up for some kind of a bizarre result, and maybe it will be one of these horses. The other difficult thing to keep in mind about a race like this, and I'm only talking about those two horses because they're the top two as far as the American contingent are concerned. Placou Parfait as well as Great Magician. They were in the United States. They had to ship over to Dubai. Now they're going to have to ship back from Dubai over here to the States. Presumably, both of them to their home bases. Now, Placou Parfait might be at Churchill, but Great Magician's based out on the West Coast. Then you're going to have to ship to Kentucky in a matter of a handful of weeks. It's a lot of travel. You know, that's always been a knock with the UAE horses coming over, is that you've got that giant sort of situation. You got to deal with quarantine and the whole nine. You know, again, the Uae Derby, do with it what you will. A fine effort from all of these horses. I thought they ran just fine. I just don't know how it projects forward for a race like the Kentucky Derby. And strictly speaking, from this race standpoint, the trip that Great Magician received was just brutal. Breaking on top, being pulled back to sit in behind horses, ultimately finding yourself about 8 paths off the rail, wider than wide, putting in as big a bit as you did, and only to lose by about a half length. I think it's fair to say that he probably ran the best race as far as the Americans are concerned, especially when you factor in Placou Parfait and the fact that he saved ground basically throughout. So, again, do with that what you will. It's not the most in-depth kind of recap because I don't know how much there really is to recap and how that compares to our North American contingent or our American horses. But Placou Parfait, he is in if he wants to. And right now, for a short time, perhaps, who knows, maybe for a long time, you never know. But for a short time at least, the Derby points leader through at least one round of the final preps is Placou Parfait. He has 104 Derby qualifying points. He is in the Kentucky Derby. He gets the job done in the UAE Derby with a solid performance. Now we're going to throw it into the stakes montage and follow it up with the quick hits. A little bit longer this week because we had so much going on out at Santa Anita, so much going on at Gulfstream. I'm not going over the rest of the Dubai card. You can find all those races up on DRF.com and video of them. If it's not there, you can find them all over on YouTube. So we're going to go through a number of races from Santa Anita and Gulfstream. I'll come back with some quick hits, and then we'll get you into the weekend's best as far as buyers are concerned. So here we go. Stakes montage.
Exuberance picking it up from well behind there at the top of the stretch. And Secret Spice runs right by Selcourt. Now Marley's Freedom is kicking into high gear. But it is still Secret Spice with a commanding lead of 16th from home. And Secret Spice will romp home in the Beholder Mile. Marley's Freedom gets up for second. Then it was Paradise Woods in front of Selcourt and Mopatism. There's Riverboy and widest of all, Catapult, Yellow Cap. They're at the top of the stretch. Ohio's trying to sprint for home. Now Catapult is coming after him. Desert Stone trying to get some room. Hunt is next. Ohio scampers clear. Catapult is out after him. But it's Ohio holding on. Catapult's trying to get him. Catapult or Ohio. Here's the line. Catapult. Perfect.
And they're at the top of the stretch. Prince Lucky now set down for the drive and 3/16 from home, 3 on top. Tale of Silence is there second. Guy Caballero was third. Then Be Gone Daddy and Millionaire Runner. But inside the final 16th, it's 1-5, and let's call it what it is. Easy money on Prince Lucky, who wins the Gulfstream Mile by 4. Tale of Silence was second. Cookie Dough off the turn. Dunbar Road floats wide but is still in the hunt with less than an eighth of a mile to go. It's Champagne Anyone who strides forward to take the lead. Dunbar Road coming at her and coming on. The leader's laying on Cookie Dough. Here's Dunbar Road on the outside. This is going to get close. Champagne Anyone. Champagne racetrack by Castellano finishing up nicely. Solio's on the outside. Top of the lane with the advantage. It's still Village King. Melmich let go down the center toward the rail. Focus Group with Canisaur. Melmich getting in a touch. Focus Group has the lead. Melmich surging to him. Melmich, Focus Group. Photo finish.
Taco widest of all. Dr. Door hugs the rail to try to chase him. There's an eighth of a mile to go, and St. Joe Bay clear by 4 has to hold off Dr. Door and Kentaka late. St. Joe Bay still well in control, and it's St. Joe Bay and Victor Espinoza. St. Joe Bay all the way in the San Carlos. Dr. Door was second, Kentaka third, Solid Wager finished fourth. The inside of her, they sprint for home, Stradella Road, Zafina, Elysia's World cut loose in the center of the course. Lynn's Legacy inside of her. They're in the final furlong. Elysia's World and Zafina. Zafina, Elysia's World, streak of luck coming through late on the inside with Stradella Road. Elysia's World gets to the front, and Elysia's World wins the Santa Ana. Second to Zafina.
Recover's going to try an inside lane with less than a quarter of a mile to go. It's Trenchtown Cat who has the lead and an eighth of a mile left to get. Vow to Recover is next on the outside in Serenitza. Final eighth of a mile. Trenchtown Cat is in front. Vow to Recover taking a late surge. This is going to get very close. Here it is. Photo finish. 12-1, and there's less than a quarter of a mile to go. In the stretch drive now, Valedictorian asked to sprint with Proctor's Ledge on the outside. Set down for the drive to color. Valedictorian. These two kick on. Valedictorian, very game. Proctor's Ledge is not by yet. These two, Valedictorian, Proctor's Ledge, it's Valedictorian. Valedictorian with a lot of ground to make up and less than a quarter of a mile to go. Here comes Marquis Prince. Let go on the outside under Castellano to challenge for the top. Archie is back, and Sterling Drive boxing on second and third. Seismic Wave is erupting late, and he ducks to the inside. Here's Seismic Wave. What a ride! If you're
all right, some quick hits, just going to go rapid fire. The Beholder Mile, Secret Spice, she gets the job done. Bit of an upset there. Back to her left lead late. The bigger piece for me, I wonder about the overall quality of that race. But I say that, but I think it's a lot of horses doing something they don't want to do. Whether it was Marley's Freedom, whether it was Selcourt, whether it was even Paradise Woods. I think they're more one-turn horses as opposed to two-turn milers. I maintain Paradise Woods. I just don't know if she can run anymore. Selcourt, clearly, I don't think she's what she once was. The Kilroe Mile, Pace makes the race. Ohio gets the jump on Catapult, who was losing his mind in behind horses early. They didn't go anything early. Ohio gets the head bob of all head bobs. Catapult, to me, is still the horse you want out of there. Disappointing effort from Next Shares. River Boyne, I think he got a little bit exposed here in this spot. Don't think he's quite as good as the top-level Grade 1 runners, but he's still a nice horse in his own right. San Carlos, Pace makes the race. St. Joe Bay is sent. He clears the field. Nobody keeps him company up front. He goes off and gets the job done at $33. Kentaka, I think he ran fine. I think he needs to get out of Southern California because that track, and Santa Anita particularly, just not to his strength. He's a horse that comes from off of it, and that's a track that's always going to, I don't want to say benefit, but it is. It's always going to play to the strengths of horses that have early speed, and it's going to be very, very difficult for a horse coming from that far off of it to successfully maintain any sort of great sort of winning record. Keep in mind, Hollendorfer's big move is second off the layoff. I believe the Churchill Downs is now a Grade 1 race. That's only going to be 4 weeks from now. I wonder if you see him at Churchill Downs here shortly. Santa Ana, I don't have anything special to add. Gulfstream Mile, I think Prince Lucky's a legitimate runner. I hope they keep him at one-turn configurations. I get the sort of draw to try to find out if two turns is within his scope, but what he has done at one turn to me is considerably better than anything he's ever done at two. I would even find out about 7/8 of a mile. I could see him doing that, but definitely if he stays sound, you're looking at probably a horse that would be a main player for a race like the Met Mile. The Cutler Bay, bit of a blanket finish. Beautiful ride, beautiful finish from Seismic Wave. He came from out of it. There was a hot pace. I like the way that he galloped out. Maybe additional ground for him won't be a problem. Sanibel Island, a ride back the pace down beautifully on Trenchtown Cat. Had a little bit left. Again, beautiful ride there. Gulfstream Oaks. I really want to see Cookie Dough turn back in distance. I think she'd be very interesting in a race like the 8 Bells. I just don't think two turns is really to her advantage. I think she has that nice forward tactical ability, going 7/8, and that can go a long way. I'd like her on the turn back. Sand Springs, very game effort from Valedictorian. I'm sure some people are disappointed with the effort from Proctor's Ledge not to be able to get the job done. Two things there. Valedictorian is a really, really gutsy horse, and she's a nice mare. And then as far as Proctor's Ledge is concerned, this is her first start since October. I think she's going to move forward in her second start off the bench. And the Pan Am, my only takeaway is I have no idea how Melmich didn't win that photo. I thought I would have bet anything on it that he got his nose down, and unfortunately for myself and anybody else involved with him in that race, he did not. It was the Chad Horse focus group down on the inside that did. So there you have it, some quick hits for this week's stakes montage. Let's quickly get into the weekend's best as far as Beyer speed figure performances are concerned, right in order. 3-year-old males on dirt, maximum security. He gets the 101 in the Florida Derby. 3-year-old fillies on dirt, break even. A 94 in the Purple Martin at Oaklawn. The 3-year-old males on grass, Social Paranoia in a maiden special weight down in Gulfstream. He was nice with a 95 buyer. 3-year-old fillies on grass, Trenchtown Cat. We just spoke about her in the Sanibel Island with a 79. Older males on dirt. Just spoke about Prince Lucky as well. A 100 in the Gulfstream Park Mile. Older fillies and mares on dirt, Secret Spice, a 100 in the Beholder. Older males on grass, Pee Wee Reese with a 102 in the Sensational Star going down the hill. And the older fillies and mares on grass, you get a 3-way tie. Valedictorian, Proctor's Ledge, both coming out of the Sand Springs. And Elysia's World winning the Santa Ana out at Santa Anita. There you have it, the weekend's best as far as buyer speed figure performances are concerned. Quickly, DRFTV schedule of events. Take a look and see. Just kind of your standard. This is a big week right now. You're going to have a lot of things that you can find, whether it's stakes previews, DRF Bets races of the day, the preview edition of the Matt Bernier Show, out of the gate, Oaks Countdown, Derby Watch, so much going on. Video.drf.com as well as the Racing Forums YouTube channel. However you listen to this podcast, thank you for doing so. You've got YouTube, SoundCloud, iTunes, video.drf.com as well as Spotify. However you listen to any of these things, please subscribe, rate, and review. Questions, comments, concerns beneath the video player on YouTube or directly to me on Twitter at Bernier_Matt. I will be back on Thursday recording the preview edition, probably going over the big Derby preps because this is the big weekend. I called it kind of Judgment Day. I think that's what you're going to have Saturday. You get the Santa Anita Derby, you have the Bluegrass from Keeneland, and you have the Wood Memorial from Aqueduct. Once those 3 races are run, things are going to be a heck of a lot clearer, or perhaps with the way things have gone, a lot murkier. But those races will happen on Saturday. I'm sure I'll touch on some things from those 3 tracks coming up on the preview pod. In the meantime, best of luck however you play, whatever you play, wherever you play. This has been the recap edition of the Matt Bernier Show.